At 4 p.m. today on this station and over at the Salem News Channel, I'm going to go live from 4 until it ends of the Medal of Freedom ceremony honoring Charlie Kirk. It will be awarded to him posthumously. President Trump will give it to Erica Kirk. We're going to go to the White House at 4 with the Salem News Channel, broadcasted over all these stations with our commercial breaks on the radio, but the Salem News Channel will stay glued there. If you want to tune to that, to watch that, we want to honor our friend and our colleague, Charlie Kirk, by doing that, so do not miss that. I want to tell you, I'm starting the show. I never start the show with my relief factor pitch. I'm starting it now because I can move a little bit, but as I said, I've got the mobility of my grandfather's ottoman yesterday, and it got worse overnight, and I haven't done anything. I've just pulled a hamstring, so I now actually have sympathy for professional athletes who say they pulled a hamstring, and I've never ever had a pulled hamstring in my life, and I don't know what I did, and I have no response for it other than take relief factor and not move. So, starting the show with relief factor, because I'm going to take it 3 times today in every hour, because I got to drive a long way tomorrow night and Thursday and Friday, and it's not something you want to do with your hamstring aching. And I have no idea. I didn't do anything. Like Zeus decided he didn't like me and hit me with a lightning bolt. And but luckily, Relief Factor is here, and you can get its wonderful benefits as well. If I'm not cured by Monday, you might write the things that Relief Factor cannot help: broken bones and hamstrings. But I've never had it happen to me before, so we'll find out. I'm tripling down on the Relief Factor. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or you can go get the starter pack for 3 weeks at relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. It's worked on everything else for 12 years. But this is a newbie, so we'll try it. The other thing I wanted to tell you about at the beginning today is not my physical woes. We had dinner last night with new friends. All right, so I knew Janine and Warren a little bit, but I had never met their friends, Kent and Arliss and Eric and Cheryl. They're all Minnesotians, and we had a wonderful time. We had a fabulous time. They were over for dinner, and Kent is in the mortgage lending business, like AndrewandTodd.com, and they listen to the program on AM 1280, The Patriot, so they know all about AndrewandTodd.com. Got all the compliments, 888-888-1172, for people who do the job and do it well. People like Kent, people like AndrewandTodd.com. They lend you money. They're a bank. And they help you figure out what to do. And I said to him, well, it's been a rough year to be a mortgage lender. And he said it has been. And we talked about the Fed being slow. And we talked about the fact the ice is breaking up. So today I went right before the show and I looked, because markets are weird today. After yesterday's great big day of peace in the Middle East, President Trump went to Israel, talked to the Knesset, went to Egypt, talked to the peace conference, got on Air Force One, back to the White House to do the Medal of Freedom for Charlie. Markets are mixed today. Right? The Dow is up a lot. The NASDAQ is down a very little bit. And they really don't know what they're doing. But the 10-year Treasury is now down to 4.019. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the 3s next week. And that means that I went over to the Wall Street Journal. Because when markets move, and gold, by the way, I just have to check the gold. $4,129 and $34 an ounce. I bought gold in January like I did every year at $2,800. So it's gone from $2,800 in January to $4,129 in 10 months. And that's wild. And so I'm wondering what's going on in the markets. So I go over to the Wall Street Journal and I see that the first headline that comes up, Wall Street is firing on all cylinders, fueled by deals and trading. And then I go down a little bit and I see Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve Chairman. Powell keeps Fed on track to lower rates again. So I think the Trump economy is coming back. And I think that means interest rates are going to fall and that the Fed is finally, President Trump calls Jerome Powell too late Powell. I think he's finally figured out that the unemployment's too high and they've got to lower interest rates. And I said to Kent last night, are people going to turn in their 3% and go get a 4 and a 4.5 or a 5 and do the math for their 30-year fixed and not pay the credit card, not pay the car loans? He said, I hope so. They're losing money every month. And that's my message to you. Call andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. Even if you're hanging on to that 3% 30-year fixed, or that 4% 30-year fixed, or that 4.5% 30-year fixed, and you say, I've struck gold, I'm never letting that go, that is not good economics. Good economics is finding out when you need to refinance. Kent and I talked about this last night a little bit. Kent's not a client, and Andrew's my friend. I would not tell you anything that wasn't true just because Andrew's my friend and my client. But Andrew and Todd have done mortgages for thousands of you folks, and the reason I'm telling you about it right now is markets are all over the place. Now is the time to call them and say, here's how much I owe on my credit cards, here's my student loan debt, here's my car payment. I'm paying X% on A, Y% on B, and Z% on C, but I got this 30-year mortgage at 3.5%. Find out if it makes sense to refi. Half of the mortgage applications in America are refinances. Some of you have got to move, and you call Andrew and Todd anyway, 888-888-1172. But I just wanted to begin the show by telling you we're getting close to the 4% on the 10-year Treasury, which means, by the way, I also think a lot of money is going to come out of money market funds where it's been parked, a lot of cash on the sidelines, making 4 to 5% interest. It's going to come out of that. It's going to go into the equities. That's Hugh Hewitt, who doesn't know anything about the markets. I don't give financial advice, but I do tell you about andrewandtodd.com. Hour 3 today, and I'm assuming President Trump will have been finished after about an hour and 15 minutes with Erica. I am going to have on Amit Segal and Nadav Eyal. They are both great Israeli journalists. Amit's like me, Nadav is like Dan Balls. Amit has a point of view that's center-right. Nadav is just trying to report the news. They're both frequent guests on Dan Senor's Call Me Back podcast and the Insider's edition of Call Me Back. Dan's going to join me tomorrow. This is such a remarkable week that I wanted to talk to people from Israel about it. They're going to join me in hour number 3. But right now I want to remind you that the International Federation of Christians and Jews, even though yesterday was a day of great celebration and rejoicing, Hamas is back at it today, causing havoc with Israelis, hanging onto the bodies. They were supposed to turn them all over yesterday, 28 bodies. They said we might not be able to find 1 or 2. They only turned over 4. Now they're going to turn over 4 again tonight. Israel has said we're not sending you anything through Rafah, and we're not sending what we promised. And I will ask Amit, are they going to get serious in Israel and resume combat and go back to the lines that they withdrew from if Hamas is screwing around? Because they are in the streets killing innocent Gazans or Gazans who did not align with them. Our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews are doing the very best for the traumatized Israelis. They've given over $1 million in support to the families of the hostages. They've given $5 million to stand up resilient centers all over the country to help Israelis of all sorts who are dealing with the stress of the last 2 years. Please be as generous as you can. 888-598-4224. 888-598-4224. 888-598-4224. Or go to the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. I am pleased to welcome back 2 sponsors to the Hugh Hewitt Show that really go together like peanut butter and jelly. One of them is myphdweightloss.com, 864-644-1900. I was wondering if you've forgotten it. 864.
I'm just as happy as you are. 644.
1900, that's
864-644-1900.
Or
864.
It's not 864, it's 644. 864-644-1900. Or myphdweightloss.com.
Yes.
Dwayne lost 50 pounds on myphdweightloss.com. I got asked about you at dinner last night.
You did?
I got asked by my friends if you really lost the weight. I said you really did lose the weight. You may have put a couple of pounds back on. Where are you right now? You wanted to lose 50, even though you really said 40, but I made it 50. Where are you now?
I think the overall process, the net, I probably put back on 10 to 15, so I'm probably 35 down from where I was.
So are you going to get back to 50?
I'm going to try and work my way back down again, yes.
All right.
I've been spending much more time on the bike of late. So
your scooter.
The bike, Yes.
864
644.
1900. And that's where you go for My PhD Weight Loss. Mike Gallagher lost 50, and I think it's kept off 55. And I'll tell you about Best Hot Grill on the other side, but we are so pleased that myphdweightloss.com is back. 864
644.
1900. We got to get back in the habit of doing that. I was saying just as we went to break that I'm glad to welcome back besthotgrill.com because they go with My PhD Weight Loss. And I have two sponsors. I love when they fit together because if Dwayne's going to go back and lose 50 pounds and he's got to lose 15 to 20 to do that, that means the Best Hot Grill in the backyard goes on, right? Oh, he's on a call. I told him we were going to do the Best Hot Grill, and he just blew me off. This is the problem with radio, is that Dwayne just walks out on me. Best Hot Grill is the greatest grill in the world. Solaire infrared grill. I have two of them. Dwayne's got one of them. They heat to 3,000 degrees in a minute. They seal in the beef. We served beef last night. It was fabulous. And I'm here to tell you, if you try it before you buy it, that's fine, but you'll buy it if you try it. It's just whether you get the small one, the big one, or the ones in between, no matter whether you like chicken or fish, and I don't know why anyone would eat chicken and fish when they can have beef. Best Hot Grill is the absolute best grill made in America. It's made right in California by our friends Rhett and Irene, and they've been doing it for decades and decades and decades. And you will be very, very glad when you go to besthotgrill.com, explore your options, pick the one that fits your backyard the best, pick the biggest one that you can get so you can put the most meat on it and cook it as fast as possible. And if you're on myphdweightloss.com, you're definitely going to want to do that. Now, the one thing I want to do as well, before I'm standing by, if the president starts early, we're going to go right to the White House for the Charlie Kirk Medal of Honor ceremony. And after the break, well, I'm going to play it for you now. I was on Fox News earlier today talking about Charlie Kirk in the 1 o'clock hour with Sandra Smith. Let's play that cut number one.
Hugh Hewitt is host of the Hugh Hewitt Show and a Fox News contributor. It will be a big afternoon, as we all remember. Charlie Kirk, gone just 1 month now, Hugh. But even though he is coming fresh off, President Trump, fresh off this whirlwind Middle East trip, he is putting the importance on being here to mark this moment.
I applaud that, by the way. I think it is remarkable that the president would fly 37 hours straight to get back from a peace summit and the visit to the Knesset yesterday in order to honor his friend Charlie. The president has energy unlike anyone I've ever followed in the public square, and so I'm not surprised that he's doing that. But they were very close, and I'm very glad he's doing that. I'm going to carry this live on my show as soon as the award ceremony begins around 4. If it's a typical President Trump ceremony, it will start a little bit late and go a little bit long, but I'll carry it all because Charlie was a colleague of mine on Salem. He was a friend of mine and a colleague since he was 19 years old, and I am interested in seeing how he is honored nationally. I've been very distressed by the need of some people, especially on the progressive left, to try and diminish everything that Charlie accomplished. So I'm glad that all of the country will be watching when President Trump awards Erica the Medal of Freedom posthumously to Charlie, because it's much deserved.
You know, Hugh, his legacy has no doubt fueled explosive growth in the student movement. We've seen that with the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of applications for chapters at all these universities all over the country. This is a New York Times op-ed talking about the youth movement and why they were so attracted to Charlie Kirk's message, why so many Gen Zers are drawn to conservative Christianity. The headline reads, Gen Z is clouded by despair. It's not hard to imagine how young people traumatized by the isolation imposed by COVID and disillusioned by the perceived emptiness of secular liberalism might be drawn to a relationship with God and a purpose in life. Many were attracted by Mr. Kirk's message of confidence and joyfulness in his conservative Christian faith. There is no doubt, Hugh, in his short time on Earth, 32 years old he would have been today, that he was giving hope to so many young people who so desperately needed it at this time in their life.
Well, I applaud the New York Times for getting something right about Charlie, so hooray for them. People were attracted to Charlie because he had energy and he spoke truth. And he wasn't always perfect. None of us are. We all make mistakes. And anyone can go through AI and try and make Charlie into something that he wasn't. But anyone who followed his career, who listened to his podcast, his radio show, saw him at a Turning Point rally, saw him with President Trump or any of the Trump family, saw him anywhere in the country, would realize he had great energy, great love of the country, an extraordinary patriot. Yes, he's an evangelical Christian, but he did not exclude anyone from his rallies. He welcomed everyone to come, believer, non-believer, believer in any other faith system. He'd answer any question, debate any topic. Sometimes he would make a verbal misstep. He would correct himself, as we all do who are on the air. Sandra, I'm sure you know that. And everything about Charlie was winsome. He was very, very winsome. So I'm glad to see people pointing to his Christian faith. That is a huge driver of his crowds and of his reach. But a lot of people in Turning Point USA are of Jewish, Muslim, no faith at all. They're there because they like freedom. And Charlie was a freedom guy first. That includes freedom of religion and freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom to petition the government. He was a freedom guy. I first met him when he was 19 years old, talking to groups of 20 and 25-year-old number of high school students. And so it would not be at all not in keeping with the Medal of Freedom to go and honor him. Among the people who have been honored in the past, very disparate people, Martin Luther King, Hyman Rickover, a man of peace, a man of war. Martin Luther King assassinated, but he preached the content of our character, not the color of our skin. Charlie was very much in the same way, but also for a strong national defense. Very appropriate that he end up on that very distinguished list of Americans, thanks to President Trump.
And you've heard President Trump talk so many times now about his great friendship with him. And when he was first introduced to Charlie, because his son wanted to meet him, and he said at the tail end of one of those interviews recently in the wake of Kirk's death, I don't know what it was, but Charlie had a magic over the kids, right? I mean, he was able to talk to kids in a different way than most adults could, and just gone too soon. We remember him, and it'll be a big day at the White House to remember Charlie Kirk. Hugh, thank you very much for joining us.
I really enjoyed being with Sandra today. Setting up the rally, we'll carry it live on the Salem News Channel on most of these stations as well. Don't miss that. Now, let me save you some money before we go and honor Charlie. Charlie was all about capitalism as well, free markets. I am too. That depends upon consumers getting the best deal they possibly can, and that means consumer cellular. Remember the number, consumercellular.com/Hugh or 1-800-411-4454. If you've switched to consumer cellular, you've already have noticed your savings. But let me ask you, have you looked at your cell phone bill lately? How much data are you really using compared to how much you're paying for? Don't be tempted by that free phone on us, big wireless offer. That phone is not free. Typically, it's the most expensive phone you can buy. Look at the actual cost of the contract you're signing before you make a $1,000 mistake. Be proactive in times of uncertainty. Time to check your bill, then check out Consumer Cellular, where you truly get savings without sacrifice. It only takes about 20 minutes to switch. Right now, you'll get $25 off when you use the promo code HUGH25. Just call 1-800-411-4454. Visit consumercellular.com/Hugh. And here's something for my 50-plus listeners. 2 lines of unlimited data for $60 a month. That's only $30 a line unlimited. Get real savings. Go to consumercellular.com/Hugh, promo code HUGH25, or call 1-800-411-4454. At 4 o'clock, we're going to go live to the White House to carry for you uninterrupted, at least on the Salem News Channel, as much as possible on the radio stations if you're in your car, of President Trump's bestowing on Charlie Kirk posthumously the American Medal of Freedom. It's the highest civilian honor that can be given. The list of its recipients are distinguished, and Charlie is very deserving of it. Erica Kirk will be there with President Trump. Don't miss that. Don't miss that. Now I want to beg. Over at YouTube, I have a Hugh Hewitt channel, and it had 97,700 subscribers, which is great. But I'm jealous of the Ruthless guys because they have more than 100,000. And so I'm asking 2,300 of you to please stop what you're doing, go over to YouTube, or go over to the Google search engine, or any search engine you've got, MySpace. I think Dwayne is using MySpace. And type in Hugh Hewitt in YouTube, and there will be my page. and you'll see that we do 3 or 4 interviews, once in a while a monologue, and we put them up there. If you subscribe, you'll get those in your feed, and what it does is it triggers the algorithm to spread those interviews even further once you cross into 6-figure land, and I'm at 97,700, which is 5 figures. Now, I want to spell this out for the Steelers fans. I need 2,300 of you. All right, it's not even a section of Steelers fans. And you won the game, all right? You won the game, and you didn't deserve to win that game. That was a lousy game. You're going to get Kevin Stefanski fired, which would be a big mistake. Coach of the year twice. You give him the tools, he'll win the game, but you got to give him some tools, and that includes offensive tackles. But whether you hate sports or love sports, out of sympathy for the fact that the Guardians had the greatest September in sports and then went went out, go over to Hugh Hewitt and YouTube and like and subscribe, and I'll stop begging you after that. I don't have to beg you about WebRoot. I have to warn you about cybercrime. The numbers are astonishing. 8 years ago, I sat down with Steve Cox, who's now the Attorney General of Alaska, and he was at the time the Associate Deputy Attorney General, and he brought over the elder fraud. I thought, why are you talking to me about elder fraud, Steve? It's because you're a radio show, not because you're old. I said, sure. He said, and I talked to her, and I was legitimately scared when I left lunch, because people over the age of 60, not just 65, not just 70 or 80, people over the age of 60, if they find out if you're over 60 on the deep web, the shark circle as though you've cut your carotid artery. They are all over you. They're phishing you. They're trying to get into your computer. They're trying to drain your bank account. If you've listened to my YouTube, and you can go over there and find the Victor Davis Hanson interview I did last month, Victor lost all of his money from his bank. I'm sure he got it back. It takes forever. But why do that? WebRoot can protect you. WebRoot Essentials can protect you. With WebRoot Essentials, there will be text scams that won't get through. Data breaches will not occur. It's hard to keep up with all the scams out there. But this is Cyber Scaries Month. All right, it's October, it's Halloween. You need WebRoot Total Protection. All-in-one product for individuals, one identity for 5 devices. The family plan has 10 identities and covers 10 devices. Lightning fast antivirus protection, identity theft protection, dark web monitoring, secure VPN, unlimited cloud backup. WebRoot Total Protection defends every part of your digital life for up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement. 24/7, 365, U.S.-based customer support. And right now, very limited time, right now, October, 60% off of WebRoot Total Protection. All you have to do is go to webroot.com/Hewitt. Webroot.com/Hewitt. I told you I'm doubling down on Relief Factor today. Here's packet number 2. Why? I've stayed in this chair for about 4 hours. I really don't want to wander around on this hamstring. I do not know what I did. Dwayne probably did it to me. But I'm taking 3 Relief Factors today. I normally take 1 because I'm on maintenance. I've been on it forever, but I'm taking 3. Here's number 2. And if you've been watching on the Salem News Channel, you've seen me take it. And I've taken it twice today. And that's because never in my life, in my many decades, have I had hamstring issue. Now, I believe, and this is medically certain, I caught it from the fetching Mrs. Hewitt, who has been to the PT like a half dozen times. If you've been married long enough, you get sympathy illness. But I haven't done anything. She really did hurt it. And she's been doctors, PT, all over the place. She can't make the 12-hour drive with me. She has to fly because she can't drive. But Relief Factor will work. Get yourself Relief Factor. Call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800-4RELIEF. Or go online to relieffactor.com and find that starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day, relieffactor.com. That music means David Drucker, senior reporter for The Dispatch, joins us. David, the enormous news out of Israel yesterday of the ceasefire and the hostage release wholly knocked the shutdown off of my news radar. I don't even know if I saw a story about it. So where do things stand, or should I say, where do people still sit when it comes to the shutdown?
Nothing has changed, and I think that's another reason why it's been knocked off the front page, so to speak. Not only is there bigger news in a really busy news environment. But, people are used to these shutdowns at this point. They're not the shock to the system they were. And there's been no movement. And both sides seem comfortable in the positions that they've taken. And so, I always hate to make predictions because then you can look really foolish, and I don't like to look foolish. But this has the makings of a shutdown that could last for quite a while.
Now, the president did manage, I saw this on Saturday, and I have a son-in-law who's on active duty, so he was happy to hear he was getting paid, but he was mostly concerned about his E1s and his E2s. They're going to get paid. Can they pull that rabbit out of the hat twice for the troops in another 2 weeks?
Well, I don't know, but it also depends on what the president decides what the president concludes he's allowed to do. He does not care too much for congressional spending directives, right? He's been impounding funds. He's been laying off, civilian work, people covered by civil service laws. He's been doing a whole bunch of things, and I'm not casting a value judgment for the purposes of this discussion, which is all I'm saying is that if he concludes he wants to pay for something, then I wouldn't be surprised if he just concludes that he can, and he does.
Okay, now, you're not old enough to remember Looney Tunes. Maybe you are. But my favorite was Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner.
No, I'm old enough. I'm very much old.
Okay. So when the Roadrunner would get up to speed, his legs would start to move, and they would go really fast, all of as fast, and they would take off.
Yeah.
That's Russ Vought. All right? His leg's been spinning up, so pretty soon he's going to take off. How many rips do you think he has in mind? Because those are permanent if Russ Vought brings the axe down.
Well, ultimately he answers to the president. So, I guess the president's going to have to decide how much of an active participant he wants to become in this shutdown fight. As I've told you, Hugh, I'm like a broken record on this. The party that instigates the shutdown loses the shutdown. It doesn't matter which party it is. It's the way it is. And that's usually because the non-offending party says, look, man, I just want to reopen the government so we can negotiate. You're doing all of the things and I'm doing nothing but sitting here waiting for you to get reasonable. If the president starts to become an active participant by firing people, not furloughing, but firing, it could theoretically change the political calculation of how people look at the shutdown because now you have sort of two active participants. That's a theory of the case that may or may not be borne out. So I know that Russ Vought is anxious to fire as many government workers as he can, sort of by his own admission, by the president's admission. And I think the question is, what does the president want to allow him to do? They fired a bunch of CDC people the other day and then started hiring them back. Not all of them, but quite a few of them. So, I think a lot of this is yet to be determined.
All right, quick two political questions. John James is dead. His numbers have crashed in Virginia because he wanted Republicans to get 2 bullets in the head. Is he going to take Spanberger with him?
And you're referring to Jay Jones.
Jay Jones, not John
James, who's running for governor in Michigan. I said, we're talking about Michigan. No, Jay Jones, who's running for Attorney General in Virginia. He's dead man walking at this point, as far as we can tell. I don't tend to think that he's going to take Spanberger with him because the issue in Virginia is affordability and what's happened, with government workers in Northern Virginia, and she speaks to that. However, she has looked rather weak and feckless in responding to this, so it's not a great exercise in leadership skills. And so I'm not going to rule out that this ends up causing her a problem, but I would lay it on her more than him. I don't think this has to cause her a problem at all. It may not end up causing her any problem in spite of my analysis. But if it does cause her a problem, my conclusion looking ahead is that it's going to be the way she sort of chose not to respond and how that looked versus what actually happened.
And then finally, I want to talk about Susan Collins, who is probably my favorite senator. I think I would move to Maine, but for the fact that they have an 8% income tax and a death tax up here. And she is the indestructible senator. They spent $48 million against her 6 years ago, and she won by 8.5 points. So Janet Mills, who will be 79 if she is sworn in as senator, if she somehow beats Susan Collins, will be a freshman senator at 79. And Susan Collins is the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, which may be the most powerful senator, maybe even more than the majority leader. I guess you could argue that. Do you think Susan Collins has to worry about this?
Well, I think Susan Collins has to worry about any competitive, well-funded race if she's running against a candidate that Mainers have voted for in the past and that they seem to like. So I think that Mills getting into this contest is a potential problem for her, but it doesn't mean she can't do what she's always done before. I think the question is, in a state where most of the voters lean Democratic and vote for Democrats, will they finally conclude that based on, how I feel about your party, will that change how I feel about you? It's never changed how they felt about her so far. But there's always a first time, right? It finally happened to Sherrod Brown in Ohio. That's one example. And so these things do happen. I will say as an aside that it's interesting to see Governor Mills get in on this unknown desire that Americans have for people that are about 80 years old to be very active in politics. So she's got that.
I don't get it. And Mainers are pretty smart, and they know what it means to have the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. And I'll say this without reservation or qualification, Susan Collins is the hardest working candidate I've ever met. I mean, if she sees you on the street, she'll pull over and help you with your groceries. She is.
Yeah, and I was being sarcastic there a second ago, Hugh, with the age thing.
Yeah.
But Susan Collins is a tough campaigner. She hasn't survived on pure luck.
No, she is. SusanCollins.com. Go give her $10 because the Democrats are going to spend $50 million again in a state with 1.3 million people. It's insane. There aren't even television stations in 2/3 of the states with signals. Special word about our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Grab a pen. I want to give you a number. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast, you're invited to join an International Fellowship of Christians and Jews actual meeting online. When you call in at 888-598-4224, I gave you that number once already, 888-598-4224, you'll hear Eckstein, who is the CEO of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, talk about the peace deal and about the freed hostages. She will be joined by the U.S. Board Chair of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, Bishop Paul Lanier. It's a very special time. You are invited. Again, that's tomorrow, Wednesday the 15th, at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Please join in this fellowship gathering on the phone, 888-598-4224. And of course, in the meantime, please be as generous as possible. All the hostages are home that are alive. That is great. Hamas is continuing its terrorism on the grieving families of those whose bodies remain in Gaza. They were supposed to turn over 28 bodies yesterday. They turned over 4. They're going to give 4 more back. Israel will not open the Rafah crossing. They're not going to allow in the amount of supplies that they said they were going to allow in. I would not be surprised if the drones fly. Indeed, this is why I'm not a general. I lose my patience. I would go back to the lines that were agreed that the IDF had on Sunday that they drew back from in order to implement the deal, because the deal spells it out. The bodies were to come back yesterday, and Hamas is being Hamas. And one of my guests said, the drones will fly soon if the Hamas terrorists. Now, don't be alarmed by what you see online. What you see online are a bunch of Hamas-clad gangsters killing people in Gaza. And I feel for the people who are being executed by these monsters, but it doesn't mean they've taken Gaza again. Doesn't mean that in the least. It just means pray for the people of Gaza, pray for the families who are awaiting their loved ones' remains, and please be as generous as possible to the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. And make a note, tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Call 888-598-4224 to join in the fellowship event. Don't go anywhere. At 4 o'clock exactly, I'm going to anchor live coverage from the White House of the awarding of the Medal of Freedom posthumously to Charlie Kirk. President Trump and Erica Kirk will be there. So stay tuned, or go over and find your Salem News Channel online, or get the app, download it in the next 2 minutes. Welcome to a special edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show. We are going to join now live at the White House. The Salem News Channel is broadcasting of a feed from the White House of the Medal of Freedom for Charlie Kirk. We're standing by waiting for them to turn on the feed as they told us to stand by and wait for it. There you can see pictures of vigils for Charlie, but President Trump flew all night back from Egypt, in fact, to have this moment for Charlie. I was on Fox News a little bit earlier today in order to set the stage. Let's play that. I was joined by Sandra Smith as we talked about the event today, cut number 1.
Hugh Hewitt is host of the Hugh Hewitt Show and a Fox News contributor. It will be a big afternoon, as we all remember, Charlie Kirk, gone just 1 month now, Hugh. But even though he is coming fresh off, President Trump, fresh off this whirlwind Middle East trip, he is putting the importance on being here to mark this moment.
I applaud that, by the way. I think it is remarkable that the president would fly 37 hours straight to get back from a peace summit and the visit to the Knesset yesterday in order to honor his friend Charlie. The president has energy unlike anyone I've ever followed in the public square, and so I'm not surprised that he's doing that. But they were very close, and I'm very glad he's doing that. I'm going to carry this live on my show as soon as the award ceremony begins around 4. If it's a typical President Trump ceremony, it will start a little bit later.
Every
network
is probably going to cover
this, and we're not any different at the Salem News Channel. And the reason is, lots has happened since Charlie was murdered. And the nation grieved for 2 weeks. Had that amazing ceremony in Phoenix, memorial service. Everybody spoke, the president, the vice president, the secretary of state, Erica Kirk. Dr. Arnn joined me on Friday to talk at length about Charlie and what it was like backstage, and how it didn't look chaotic at all to those of us at home who were watching. But today will be quieter and more somber. But I am really looking forward to President Trump's remarks. They'll be off the cuff, like his remarks in the Knesset yesterday. And when I was a young lawyer in the White House, and this was a long time ago, and I was the junior lawyer, I never missed any of these. President Reagan awarded the Medal of Freedom to Mother Teresa, not then Saint Mother Teresa, just Mother Teresa. And the Gipper came out of the Oval, and being a good Roman Catholic boy, I was in row 2, and it was before, President Trump did a very smart thing by taking the grass away and inlaying the beautiful white marble that matches with the White House. Very well done. And you're kind of sinking. They used to put on a wooden parquet floor that folded. Wasn't really great class, but it worked. And out came the Gipper, 6'2", not as tall as Donald Trump, but big. And behind him came one of the smallest adults I've ever seen. Mother Teresa was probably 5'1" in her flat-soled white shoes and her little blue veil. Little slip of a woman, future saint, already understood to be saintly. And President Reagan made magnificent remarks about her. And then he leaned over and put the Medal of Freedom on her shoulders, and she bent forward. And the Gipper said something like, "Would you like to say something?" And she nodded yes. And so, okay, we're about to hear Mother Teresa talk. And the microphone, the president pulled down one of those microphones, the ones that bend, into the front of Mother Teresa, and she looked at him and said, "Mr. President, I need more money." And ever since then, I've never been afraid to ask for money for a good cause. I've done dozens of Young Life fundraisers. I've asked people for library money at the Nixon Foundation. I've asked people for money at my churches. I've asked people for money on the air. And you know why? If saints can ask presidents for money, I can ask people for money. And if you have confidence in the cause, you do. And generous people, for example, our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews are asking people for money right now to help Israel. They've raised and spent over $1 million on families of the hostages. They've stood up and spent $5 million on, I think it's a pretty neat idea, resilience centers. Anyone among the 10 million Israelis who are stressed out and worn out and frayed because of the last 2 years, I don't think any sirens have gone off since the ceasefire deal was entered into. Not even the crazy Houthis are doing anything. But 2 years of constant threat, and your children or your grandchildren deployed to Gaza, you just can't really begin to understand what that's like and the stress that it brings. And so the IFCJ has been there, and we greatly appreciate it. We have a banner over at hughhewitt.com if you want to go there and donate to the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And so I'm wondering now, it's at 6 minutes after, and ask Carly and Dwayne to double check on whether we've got the circuit correct. Adam just whispered it's not live yet, and waiting for the Salem News Channel to turn on its cameras. Not sure if the president's out there or not, and I don't know what the weather is because there's a nor'easter banging around the East Coast, and they'll cover it up, or maybe they'd move it inside to the East Room as well. That can accommodate a lot of people, but I know they were expecting a big crowd in honor of Charlie, and a lot of TPUSA people were coming from all over the country to be a part of that. While we wait, I want to move over and run down some of the news of the day and some of the clips of the day that Generalissimo sent me. This is President Trump last night on Air Force One talking about who he gets along with and who he doesn't get along with, cut number 3.
I get along with the tough ones. I don't get along with the weak ones. I get along with the tough ones. I don't know what that is, but Erdogan's been great with me. You know, when NATO has a problem with Erdogan, which they often do, they call me to talk to him. And I've never failed in working it out like immediately. Is that right?
And then he went off on J.B. Pritzker, cut number 2.
I'll be speaking to Governor J.B. Pritzker tomorrow. Do you have any messages or questions for him?
Well, I think you should beg for help because he's running a bad operation. He's letting people be killed in his city because he doesn't want in Chicago. And I love Chicago. Chicago can be a great city again, and very quickly. I would have Chicago cleaned out, the criminals removed, we would remove them. You know, in D.C. we took out 1,700 career criminals, hard-line criminals. That's why it's so good right now. D.C.'s setting records the other way. It's never been so safe. And the restaurants have never done better business. They're opening up new restaurants. They were closing restaurants, now they're opening new restaurants. I can do the same thing on a larger scale in Chicago. And Pritzker should ask me to do it. But when you mention insurrection, I mean, you were the one that mentioned, one of you mentioned insurrection. I could do that. And many presidents have.
Do you have an update on
50%, Katie, 50% of the presidents have used the insurrection because they don't want to go through this stuff where somebody said there's no crime and 4,000 people got shot.
Okay, and then Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury, went on the Charlie Kirk Show today, cut number 6.
And we are going to, as they always say, follow the money. When you see these groups where all the signs match, they have hundreds of the same umbrellas that they're using. You know, after they cause the mayhem, they have the same lasers that they're using to blind our police force. You know, how are they constructed? Because this takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of organization, and we are going to do that. We have started to compile lists, put together networks, and you know, there's a long record here. And we don't know how much of the support's coming in from overseas. We don't know how much being supported by U.S. nonprofits, you know, C3s that give money to C4s. But this is mission critical for us now. Just as after 9/11 and Osama bin Laden, the ultimate culprit, was captured, we are operationalizing this here at Treasury, and we are going to track down who is responsible for this. So Charlie's death has set this off, and we are determined not only to honor him, but to keep our country safe and to ensure freedom of speech on both sides. That we can't, as conservatives, we can't be afraid to go out and speak. I know people are canceling speeches. They're having to bring down the size of the rallies. President Trump was millimeters away from death, and he was not deterred, and we're not going to be deterred.
Good for Secretary Bessent. He also said this on the Charlie Kirk Show today, cut number 7.
Yesterday, I believe, was the greatest day thus far this century. With the hostages coming home, the beginning of the peace process, which no one said could be done, and President Trump did it. But there were people out there with that venom and vile behavior. And then every Saturday, you look and there are these collegiate football games and military flyovers and people waving the flag, and it's almost like we're in a contest for America. And Charlie was determined that good was going to win. That we were going to see the light, and it was going to be through faith and education and belief in family and country, and everything that got us here for the first 250 years is what's going to take us for the next 250 years.
And he's so right about that. Doug Burgum was on with Maria Bartiromo this morning, Secretary of the Interior, talking about the shutdown and how stupid it is. Chuck Schumer's shutdown, cut number 8.
Well, yes, and maybe Schumer and the Democrats haven't noticed, but China isn't taking the month off. They have not shut down their government. We're in an AI arms race. You've had a number of folks on today, as you should, because one of the biggest things in the market is this incredible amount of spending that's going on CapEx for us to help win the AI arms race with China. We need to have that private sector spending, investing in power generation, in chips, and in AI factories. All of that has to happen. All of that, again, we're fighting everything we can do with the people that we're working through the National Energy Dominance Council to keep permitting going, to keep these deals going, to keep that spending going. We have to. But again, it's like the Democrats are hurting us on the world stage, and they're hurting us at home economically with this shutdown.
Now, the president also had a cabinet this morning, which is, again, Israel yesterday, Egypt yesterday, fly all night, cabinet meeting. We're getting ready to see the award of the Medal of Freedom posthumously to Charlie Kirk with Erica Kirk there. But he had a gaggle with reporters beforehand, which is pretty interesting. Cut number 14.
We have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes. You say
because
quickly.
you always, everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm. And I spoke to Hamas, and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's what they told me. They will disarm, or we will disarm them. Got it? Okay.
What is the deadline you're going to put on that? You say quickly,
Well,
sir. You say quickly, but what is the deadline you're going to put on that
A
before you
reasonable
take
period of
action?
time, pretty quickly.
Mr.
A
President.
reasonable period of time.
Reasonable period of time is whenever he says it is. When he said 60 days, he meant 60 days to Iran. Cut number 15, he talks about the shutdown.
That's why they keep the government closed. They have a shutdown based on nonsense. They want to give away 1.5, think of it, they want to give away $1.5 trillion to people that come into the country illegally. And as you know, the borders now are closed. But when they hear that they get the greatest health care package in the world and they have no money, but they're living okay in another country, they head up and they start forming caravans and they try and come into our country. But the big problem is they want to give health care to people that should not get health care. They want to give health care to illegal immigrants by the millions. Look at Gavin Newsom, what he's done. He's ruined California. He gives health care to anybody. And I guess they do it for votes. I actually think it's bad politics, but I guess they do it for votes.
Gavin, who knows why Gavin does something. Then an ABC reporter, remember ABC, George Stephanopoulos, least professional moment I've seen in 35 years in this business, on Sunday, cutting off the vice president and going to a hard break because George's feelings were hurt. ABC reporter tries to ask a question at the cabinet gaggle, cut number 17.
Your ABC fake news.
Mr. President,
Brian, please.
First of all,
I don't
congratulations.
take questions from ABC fake news. After what you did with Stephanopoulos to the Vice President of the United States, I don't take questions from ABC fake news. Brian, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Can we play it again? Because I like that so much. Cut number 7.
Your ABC fake news.
Mr. President,
Brian, please.
First of all,
I don't
congratulations.
take questions from ABC fake news. After what you did with Stephanopoulos to the Vice President of the United States, I don't take questions from ABC fake news. Brian, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
One more time.
Your ABC fake news.
Mr. President,
Brian, please.
First of all,
I don't
congratulations.
take questions from ABC fake news. After what you did with Stephanopoulos to the Vice President of the United States, I don't take questions from ABC fake news. Brian, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Music to my ears. Cut number 16, the last one, the President of the
I
Cabinet.
actually have a man who is a very wealthy person. You'll know that when I tell you this. Who called a donor, a great gentleman, and he said, if there's any money necessary, shortfall, for the paying of the troops, then I will pay it, meaning he will pay it. How about that? I said, look, we're not going to need it. We're going to take care of our troops. But this was a position that's being forced upon us by Democrats. And all they have to do is just sign a piece of paper saying we're going to keep it going the way it is. You know, there's nothing. It's not like it shouldn't even be an argument. They've signed it many times before. I don't want to bore you with the fact that Schumer said 100 times you should never close up government. But Schumer's a weakened politician. I mean, he's going to finish his career as a failed politician. He's a failed politician. He's allowed the radical left to take over the Democrat Party. So if they write
Yes, he
books about-
has. Don't go anywhere. If President Trump begins the ceremony for Charlie and Erica, we'll come right back from break. In the meantime, on break here on the Salem News Radio Network, the Salem News Channel, and our wonderful affiliates. Let's put up the live feed from the Rose Garden. As you can see, the brand new marble floor is in place. People are standing. So they haven't been given the 2-minute warning yet. It is typical for, let's keep the feed up. People, I can tell you, I can do a little play-by-play if I spot anyone. If I see Dr. Gorko or somebody, I always like watching the feed. It's much better than watching me. And people kind of like to see. I've always enjoyed watching who comes in late, who wanders around, who has to walk off like the girl did with just the phone right now. And then we get to see the back of someone with a fine head of hair. Absolutely wonderful head of hair in the shot. And if it was Katie Porter right now, Generalissimo, what do you think we'd hear from Katie Porter if that was the shot? If that was, we couldn't put it on the FCC.
Yeah,
station.
it would be get out of my shot, right?
That's not Katie Porter. Whose head of hair do you think that is? It's a pretty good head of hair. Could be David Stockman came out of retirement.
It could be David Stockman. It could be.
No, it's a photographer. It's a hipster.
Wasn't David Gregory, NBC News, he had that kind of a hair?
Nah, but he's not a photographer. Okay, we're doing the close-in now.
We're zooming in a little bit over the head.
They're zooming in over his head so he didn't get the head of hair. They might have heard me. I believe that's the pool, so we can't blame Salem News Channel for a bad shot there. That's not up to us. And we've got the young military aides. Now, I know a few things about military aides. It's both the best job in the... Oh, there's the vice president. Vice President.
You see George Stephanopoulos anywhere nearby?
I do not see George. George has not been invited to the press corps. I don't know that. I just don't see him. He's kind of short. We wouldn't see him anyway. But if we could zoom in on who the VP is talking to, my guess is TPUSA staff and family and friends of Charlie are in the first couple of rows. Turning Point USA, they've got an enormous staff, thousands of people, but there's an inner core there. And now with the selfie, is that Matt Gaetz, Dwayne? Is that Matt Gaetz?
It certainly could. I sure hope not, but it certainly
No,
could.
I think it was.
Yeah, it might be.
It might be. And
he was at the service. He's at the memorial.
yeah, I don't see Dr. Arnn. Lots of people are friends and they're hugging. I've always found this to be an interesting moment. only the bigs are allowed to work the crowd. So the vice president is the vice president. He can go talk to anybody he wants because he's the vice president. Everybody else is supposed to take their seat and stay seated. At the funeral for George Shultz, everybody, now let's go back to live feed. Let's just stay with the live feed, Harley. Stuff happens, and I might say it. At the funeral for George Shultz, I was dismayed at how George was, he might have been 100 years old, and the secretary had a lot of people there. And Pete Wilson came and he took his seat, great governor of California, and he plopped himself down and he stayed seated and did not move because he was honoring Secretary Shultz. A bunch of people who will remain nameless worked the room. And I've always thought that is not appropriate. Now, this is a little bit different. This isn't a funeral or a memorial service. This is a Medal of Freedom service. And people are not breaking the rules of protocol or good taste by moving around and saying hello to friends. If you start giving out business cards, that's going to break the bounds. But we're not anywhere close to a 2-minute warning because there are just too many people standing around, and the scurrying hasn't begun. Scurrying is a White House feature, not a bug. And when the flare goes up and they do the 2-minute, it's interesting wardrobe as well. It's not black. This is celebratory. Some people are wearing black, but some people are wearing red and gray and white. And that's okay because it's a celebratory thing. It's not mourning. This is a big deal to get the Medal of Freedom. We don't hand these out. They go to great people. And Charlie led a great movement and was a great person. And they are, however, starting to move people into their chairs. You can see that if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. And I am reminded, when nothing's happened and people talk, that's when broadcasters say the dumbest things. I did the O.J. Simpson chase. So I learned early on that less is more. And so the O.J. Simpson chase was marked. Now keep the feed on, Harley, because it's better than looking at me. I got nothing to say. We're waiting. And I don't want to start and into a monologue or a bit or a clip of the president or a clip of one of his people and then interrupt the clip and leave the audience hanging. It's the dilemma of everyone who does a broadcast like this. And now they're getting ready. Now they're moving people around and we'll carry it live. People are retreating to their seats. They're getting out of the way. The 2-minute warning's been given. And the people who shouldn't have been in the front are going to the back. That's when you find out who is edging up to see people and be seen. Now everyone is seated. The military aides are standing erect. And someone is given... I didn't see the flare go up either. It's usually a little bit of an announcement. We've got the audio feed now. And so I'll stop talking completely when we hear anything. The Oval Office will open on the left if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. And the door will open. The president will exit, I believe, with Erica Kirk. Trying to figure out what the musical selection is. Is it Phantom of the Opera? President likes Phantom of the Opera, so. Oh, good. Good hand on the camera. Yeah, it is. Is it? Or is it Les Mis? Dwayne, do you have any fix on the music?
No clue. Not able to get a fix on it yet. Definitely operatic.
Yeah, don't you have Shazam on your iPhone?
I think you do too.
Well, yeah, but
it didn't have enough to grab it yet.
You know, I keep always playing the Big Ten song on the weekends. And
Well, this is not that.
no, I'm trying to find out what the Big Ten song is. It is Silver Linings Guards. That's what I would be playing right now, because then everyone would be in a better mood. And I've got to think the president's going to be uplifting. It's not going to be the somber memorial service eulogies. And what is with this guy on the lens? See, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, someone's doing finger puppets with the lens. What is that music? If any of you on subtext are members of the universe and you recognize that, I'm going over to subtext to find out if any of you will subtext it to me. I do text with the subtext member. Nope, no one's written me since 404, so no one has listened. But if anyone is... Oh, I'm disappointed that my subtext audience is confused as well. They can't pick it up. And I mean, everyone is frozen, so they are waiting. Well, I'll go back to my OJ story, since the 2-minute warning is obviously not the 2-minute warning. OJ's car chase took, I don't know, 4 hours. I'm going to actually look that up as a useful bit of trivia. How long was the O.J. Simpson chase? And the O.J. Simpson chase was 1 hour and 45 minutes. And it seemed like 5, 7, 10 hours. So Pat Morrison, Kermit Alexander, and I were doing 1 hour and 45 minutes of watching a car drive up and down the 405. They almost got to San Diego, I think. And the only thing that happened in the whole time was John McKay called in and spoke over all the networks to OJ, who didn't have a TV in the car. I mean, this is pre-cell phones. I never understood that. I guess he was talking to KNX radio or the news stations, but we carried that. But we talked for 1 hour and 50 minutes about nothing. Because you can't infer anything other than the mental state of the late O.J. Simpson was disturbed, but we'd already kind of gathered that. Can I say a word about the military aids? They're fabulous. Whoa! What was that?
They adjusted the sound on the feed.
Yeah, and so I'm adjusting the sound in my ear. No one blinched. Military aids are amazing. No-win job. You can only screw that job up. It's a great honor to be selected to be one of the military aides at the White House. And then at the Christmas party, to which I have not been invited for 1,000 years. The last Christmas party I went was in 2007 or 2008, before President Obama came in. And everybody goes then. They've got 1,000 young officers all dressed up and in their finest military dress to guide you around and get you into the right lines and help you up and down the steps. And these 8, 2 women, 6 men, have stood Ramrod State. They're used to this. They're at attention. First in line on the right is the Navy. Air Force is first in line on the left. I'm doing color commentary now. Now I feel like halftime when the parade doesn't go. Again, it's one of those mixed events. It's not somber. People are talking. It's celebratory, but people aren't talking that much. It's not like a rally. What are we listening to now?
Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Okay.
Man, that's a heck of a Shazam list
That-
or Spotify list.
Who is this?
Bonnie Tyler with like
I have never played with Bonnie Tyler.
of this I am absolutely certain.
Yeah. Not once.
I think 1985 Total Eclipse of the
Even
Heart,
though I've been around a long time, I never played with Bonnie Tyler.
and nobody ever did again.
Did Bonnie Tyler pass away?
I think I think she was a one-hit wonder. I think she died a few years ago. I think she did.
I'm looking her up. I don't want to give misinformation. No, Bonnie Tyler, 74 years young and doing fine. She's a Welsh singer.
You know why they're playing this song?
I have no idea.
Because it's about 7.5 minutes long.
Oh,
It's a long song. This is like when the DJ puts this on and he's got to use the facilities. It's one of those types of songs. It gives you time to take care of other things.
change your clothes.
Yes.
Get a burger.
Take a shower. Yes.
The absurdity of television and radio broadcast of live events that are not on the mark. You know, Dr. Arnn was our guest on Friday, and he delivered a eulogy for Charlie, and he told us that and they're messing with the sound system volume again. And the time between he began the walk up to the stage and the time he got to the stage, 3 different people changed the time that he was supposed to speak. And it kept getting shorter. And Dr. Arnn finally said to the last one, "Do you want to give the speech?" And he gave a great 3 minutes. Dr. Arnn doesn't need cues. And you know what? I think we're going to have to scrub Amit and Nadav and Admiral Montgomery and play them tomorrow because this is going to run through 6 o'clock. What are you saying, Dwayne? You got an estimate here?
Your guess.
Over and under?
I think it starts in 10 minutes and it may go 30 minutes.
No, President's not going to go 30. And he's talking about his pal. He loved Charlie. He absolutely loved Charlie. So he's not going to do 10 and done. He's going to do the weave. And it may be the greatest weave ever. So we're going to carry it live.
He may use it to do to beat up on Schumer and the Democrats. Yes.
Well, he may level George Stephanopoulos too. He's going to praise Benjamin Netanyahu. Going to talk about his friends MBS and MBZ. He's going to talk about Charlie's commitment to freedom, patriotism, free speech. He's going to blast the people who have, and he's going to do this appropriately, attempted to drag Charlie's name through the mud and call him every name in the book.
I could be wrong. This sounds like Andrea Bocelli.
Let's give a listen.
Ave Maria.
It is Ave Maria. That I know. I'm Catholic.
It could be Bocelli. It could be Luciano
Could be
Pavarotti.
Barbara Streisand pretty soon.
No, it's not going to be Barbara Streisand.
She did Ave Maria on her Christmas album.
Yeah, but Donald Trump
Whenever
is not going to play Barbara Streisand.
Whenever hosts are anchoring moments like this, I've been doing this for 35 years, you got to go back and you should be playing bingo. All right, names you don't expect to come up. But now we've got Andrea Bocelli and Barbara Streisand. And who is the singer you mentioned?
I figured this is Andrea Bocelli or it's Luciano Pavarotti.
No, the long song before that.
Oh, Bonnie Tyler.
Okay, Bonnie Tyler. Nobody had those 3 on their bingo card.
No. I'm telling you, if they come out with Freebird, it's going to be another 12 minutes. If they come out with Inagata Davida, go get a sandwich.
Yeah, the poor guys are standing up in the back. The Mother Teresa event, and they've got aides over on the right, who are texting each other. Do we have a time? Now it might be quite an emotional moment in the Oval. That could be why this is going on. If Erica needs time to compose herself, President's going to give her time. and the kids are probably with him. Charlie and Erica have 2 small children, 1 and 3. And
I bet they're with Usha.
And JD's, they might be, with the vice president's, with the second lady. She's not there. I haven't seen her. But the vice president's seated, so they gave some kind of a warning. And I'm counting. I'm guessing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 rows. There are 100 people there seated, and another scrum of 30 in the back. And now a Marine's come up and is talking to the Navy person, no doubt telling the Navy person what to do. Sorry, Navy people. My father-in-law was a Marine, and my brother-in-law is a Marine, so I know they actually run everything. Or so I've been told. And nope, don't know you. I really don't recognize anyone other than the vice president. And they've got a run of show that no longer means anything because it was supposed to begin at 4 o'clock. I'm just waiting for the next musical selection.
Well, you know it's getting close when they wheel out Lee Greenwood.
He's not. That's not Lee Greenwood right now.
Well, no, I'm saying if they wheel out.
He sang at the memorial service, so I don't think they're going to repeat. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by Erica Kirk.
Thank you very much, everybody. Please, this is such an honor. This is please be seated. This is the first time we've been at the new and improved Rose Garden, and people are loving it. They're loving it like they've not loved a lot of things. We have the Presidential Walk of Fame, which you just saw, and it just opened. We wanted to get it open for this occasion. We were hoping we were able to get outside, and the weather allowed us to. It was supposed to be a terrible rainy day. I was telling Eric, and God was watching, and he didn't want that for Charlie. He just didn't want that. So it's really beautiful. It couldn't be more beautiful. Today we're here to honor and remember a fearless warrior for liberty, beloved leader who galvanized the next generation like nobody I've ever seen before, and an American patriot of the deepest conviction, the finest quality and the highest caliber, the late, great Charlie Kirk. Five weeks ago, our nation was robbed of this extraordinary champion. He was a champion in every way. I got to know him so well. He didn't like losing, and he was able to fight people that were enemies, and he didn't necessarily love those enemies so much. You know, I heard he loved his enemies, and I said, wait a minute, is that the same Charlie that I know? I'm not sure, but I didn't want to get into it. But it was a horrible, heinous, demonic act of murder. He was assassinated in the prime of his life for boldly speaking the truth, for living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk, our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you. As you know, only hours ago I returned from a very historic trip to secure peace in the Middle East. People said that couldn't be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. But I raced back halfway around the globe. I was going to call Erica and say, Erica, could you maybe move it to Friday? And I didn't have the courage to call. But you know why I didn't call? Because I heard today was Charlie's birthday. And I said, you know, that was a definite. And I said, we're going to have to forget about some of those very big, very rich countries that expected me to be there. And I can tell you, based on the length of that flight, I wouldn't want to go back tomorrow. But I would not have missed this moment for anything in the world. Nothing. And it's a very important time for our country, and our country is doing so well. It's never done better. We are a country with almost now $18 trillion of investment coming in. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Previous administration had less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We have more than 18, it'll be much more than 20 by the time the year, more than $20 trillion. There's never been a country in the world that had anything like that. What's happened to our country is incredible in a short period of time. Charlie was a big person for, sir, can we close up those borders, please, a little bit? You know, they're really leaking badly. I said, Charlie, I haven't gotten there yet. But, you know, it came out last 4 months. Literally nobody was allowed into our country. And the only people that were allowed in were people that came in legally. The borders are absolutely stone cold closed. And they reported 0, 0, 0, and 0. So that's pretty good. But he was a big believer. He wanted people in the country more than I did, frankly. He wanted them to come in legally. And he got his wish. October 14th is Charlie's birthday, and he should have been turning 32 years old. I tell you, when I first met him, he was like 22. And I said, boy, he's awfully young. But I thought he was older than that, you know. He looked a little bit older than his age. That's okay, you know. That's not good when you're old, but when you're young, it's great. He had the best of all things, but he was special. But instead, Charlie is attaining a far more important milestone. We're entering his name forever into the eternal roster of true American heroes. He's a true American hero, an amazing person, way, way beyond his years. And I'm honored to be joined by a woman who has endured unspeakable hardship with unbelievable strength, and that's Charlie's widow, Erica. And I just want to thank you, Erica. He loved you so much. I was with him. Oh, please. Thank you, darling. Thank you. I was with him before I met Erica, and he told me he was going to get married. He said, you won't believe how beautiful she is. I said, well, then now that I meet her, he's right. But then he also said, and you know what? She's like the smartest person I know. See, they do go together on occasion. Not often. Not often. But on occasion they go together. But he was in love with you. He was deeply in love with you. It's great. Erica, your love and courage have been an inspiration to all of us, and we will always be here for you, and we're always going to be here for your gorgeous, beautiful children. And we'll never forget what your family has sacrificed for our country. Man loved our country. When things were going badly for our country, he was so, as you know, angry. He would get angry because he said it doesn't have to be that way. We're also pleased to be joined by an incredible group of Charlie's friends, very powerful friends, actually, and some not so powerful, and they're actually better people, okay? I know them all. They're the less powerful ones. I have to tell you that, all of you power guys down here. The best ones in the group are the ones that are less successful, but that happens too. No, they're all great, and they're here. And let's start with Erica's father. Where is Erica's father? Where are you? Where are you, Dad? Oh, look at him. Wow. I want to get a hat like that, too. I like that. How are you? Nice to see you again. Thanks as well to Vice President J.D. Vance, who's been fantastic. J.D., thank you very much. Great. Doing a great job. Did a great job on Sunday with George Slopadopoulos. He put him away pretty good. Second lady, who's a phenomenal woman, Usha Vance. Thank you very much, Usha. Thank you very much. Great woman. President of Argentina. He wanted to be here. That's Argentina's a serious flight, right? And he's become a superstar, and he's doing amazing things. He's a MAGA person, but it's make Argentina great again. That's what he does, right? And I want you to stand, please, Javier Milei. Doing a great job. Thank you very much. Many members of my cabinet are here, just about all of them are here. I won't go into every single one of them, but I'll announce a few of the people that have really turned this country around and helped me. Incredible people. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Where is Mike? Mike, what a job you're doing, Mike. What a job you're doing. And I watched you this morning, and you're in there trying to say, look, just let the country open. Everything will be fine. We're dealing with some radical left lunatics. And I just wish Charlie was here to fight us. I think the fight would have been over already. He would have had a march on the Capitol by people whose average age is about 21, because there's nobody that had that relationship with young people. Right, Mike? So thank you, Mike, for being here. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Steve, thank you very much. A brave guy and a friend. House Majority Whip, another terrific man, Tom Emmer. Tom. Thank you, Tom. Senate Majority Whip, John Barrasso. John, thank you very much. You have all these senators. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm not going to read all their names. I'll be reading all day. We'll be talking about Charlie in about 45 minutes from now. We can't do that. So all of the senators, there's so many of you, thank you very much. I do want to thank Senator Thune for doing a terrific job. He's really been leading properly. Do you agree, Mike? The team, the two of these guys have been fantastic. So to Senator Thune, I want to thank you very much. Incredible job. I watched him this morning, and he was out there pounding them this morning on television, too. And John Barrasso, thank you for the work you've done, and congratulations on your success. But I want to thank you all and all of the Congress people that are here. And I see we have our Attorney General here, and you are doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Pam. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have everybody. Wow, that's incredible. Okay, I'm not going to do any more. I'm going to be here too long, but I just want to thank you. Have given him such support, but he always gave you such support. That's why you're here. And very unusual. Charles James Kirk was a visionary and one of the greatest figures of his generation. He was truly an amazing figure and growing leaps and bounds. He knew that the fight to preserve our heritage is waged not only on the battlefield and in the halls of power, of which we have tremendous power here, including the head of a place called War. We call it now War. We had Defense. We had our Secretary of Defense. Now we have a Secretary of War. And somehow I think it's more emblematic, and hopefully we'll never have to use war. But the fact that we're ready is very good. Peace through strength is very important. But also in the hearts of our nation's youth, that's where Charlie rode strongest. At age 18, that insight inspired Charlie to found the organization that ultimately touched the lives of millions and millions of people, and so many young people that nobody's ever seen anything like it, frankly. Turning Point USA. It's amazing. And it's actually bigger now. It's become bigger in the last few weeks than Charlie ever thought. I think his end vision in many years from now would have been just a fraction of what it turned out to be in a couple of weeks, right? It's amazing. With hard work and joyful spirit and endless enthusiasm and determination. And he did have great enthusiasm. You know, I always say you need enthusiasm to be successful. He had great enthusiasm. Charlie grew Turning Point into the largest conservative youth organization in the entire country. He forged a personal bond with countless young conservatives. He fought for free speech, religious liberty, strong borders, and a very strong and proud America. In everything he did, he put America first. He really put America first. And ultimately, Charlie became more than a leader of an important organization. He became the leader of historic movements all over the country. There were movements, individual movements, one movement, but it was historic. Everything he did was historic, and a true evangelist for the cause of freedom and the word of Almighty God. God was very important to Charlie. He would say, you know, if you don't have religion, you're not going to have a strong country. It's true. He was so wise beyond his years. You know, I talk to him sometimes and say, this guy is like a young guy. He was really a wise man. From the time Charlie worked on my presidential campaign in 2016, and he was there right from the beginning. He liked me. I don't know. I have no idea why. What the hell was he thinking? He said, you're going to win, sir. I said, you know, I'm running against 17 senators and a lot of tough people and governors. We have all these people. And he said, no, you're going to win, sir. He said, not going to be close. And he made it happen. He helped make it happen. I'll tell you that. Without him, who knows what would be. Maybe you'd have Kamala standing here today. That would not be good. I will tell you, Javier, you don't know who Kamala is. Promise, it would not be good. You agree with that, Howard? He also mobilized countless citizens to go vote. It's called Go Vote. Very simple. And with his help in 2024, we won more young people than any Republican by far in the history of our country. And we won the popular vote. We won the states, all 7 of them. Remember, they said, oh, well, if Trump could win 4, that would be nice. I win 7 by a lot, by a landslide. But the popular vote was massive. And we won the Electoral College. Remember, they said, well, it's going to be very hard. I'd say 270. Well, we got 312 to 226. And then we won something called districts and councils and different things. But in one case, we won 2,750 to 525. That's the one where you see the map is almost entirely red, except they have a little blue line on one side and a little blue line, meaning New York and a little bit Los Angeles. I have a feeling that if the vote were 100%, we would have won that too. You want to know the truth. But he knew, and he knew very well, and he also understood honesty, and he was always concerned with honesty. He said the only way we can lose is if the cheating gets so bad, and that's where we came up with a little phrase, too big to rig. We said, go out and vote. Just go out and vote. And we had that. Remember, we used to say that all the time because people would say, oh, they're going to win. We don't have to vote. Let's go to a movie. We'll come home and watch later. And he wasn't about that. So we come up to, together, we came up with that phrase, we got to make it too big. I never made a speech where I didn't say at the end, now look, the polls are showing good. Don't believe the polls. He said, we're going to make it, Susie, right? Too big to rig. So if you think we're going to win by a lot, doesn't matter. Pretend we're losing. You got to go out and vote. They voted. And at 9:02, the whole thing was over, right? 9:02. Remember they said, oh, this could go a few days. Well, it went a few minutes. 9:02. And he knew that. And I felt it, but he knew it. He knew it. I think he knew it more than anybody. But Charlie never missed an opportunity to remind us of the Judeo-Christian principles of our nation's founding or to share his deep Christian faith. In his final moments, Charlie testified to the greatness of America and to the glory of our Savior, with whom he now rests in heaven. And he is going to make heaven. I said, I'm not sure I can make it, but he's going to make it. He's there. He's looking down on us right now. It's so incredible. Look at this, how this turned out. This was supposed to be so dark and cloudy. Not dark and cloudy, is it? Look at that, how beautiful that is. There's no artist that can capture it as beautiful as it is today. Wow. It's amazing. As I said, on the day that he was assassinated, Charlie Kirk was a martyr for truth and for freedom. And from Socrates to think, and to St. Peter, from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King, those who change history the most, and he really did, have always risked their lives for causes they were put on earth to defend. He was put on earth to do exactly what he was doing. He didn't want to waste time. He would have been a top student at any college in the country. I know the colleges well. He's smarter than the guys there. He was so smart. But he almost, I guess, didn't have the time. He knew what he wanted to do. It wasn't like, gee, I want to sit in the classroom for 4 years listening to people teach me liberal principles, because they were never going to teach him that anyway. But he didn't have the time. He really didn't have the time. But every time the enemies of goodness and virtue tried to silence the voice of righteous and noble leaders like Charlie, they failed. They seem to fail. Ultimately, they look like they're doing well, and then they end up failing, because the truth has been unrelenting over the years, over history. And people like Charlie, it's just they've got a power that others don't have, and very few people will ever have. So today, like those martyrs before him, Charlie's voice, his message, and his legacy are stronger and greater than ever before. They are greater than ever before. Look, this is a horrible event, but it brought out the greatness of Charlie. Nothing could have ever supplanted this. It's incredible the way people are talking about him, and with great love. I mean, I read so many stories about some of the enemies, but I watch the enemies, and it's hard for them to speak badly about him because they just don't. And then you do have people in the days since Charlie's killing. We've seen exactly why our country so dearly needed his example. We've watched legions of far-left radicals resort to desperate acts of violence and terror because they know that their ideas and arguments are persuading no one. They know that they're failing. They have the devil's ideology, and they're failing, and they know it. They feel it, and they become violent. They seem to become very violent on the left. They've rammed vehicles into federal law enforcement, fired sniper rifles at ICE agents, and me, you know. But I made a turn at a good time. I turned to the right. Charlie couldn't believe it, actually. He said, how the hell did you make that turn? I said, I don't know. But fired rifles and threatened the lives of our Supreme Court justices, our great justices. They have to be protected. We just issued a lot of money, $60 million, to protect the Supreme Court justices. Very important. We can't let anything happen. In places of worship, we're protecting our people. We've seen that a candidate for Attorney General in Virginia boasted that he would want to see the Republican legislature, a legislator in Virginia, shot in the head and to see his children murdered. He actually said this. And now he continues to run for office, and most people continue to back him, but he said he wants his man shot. He said shot in the head and to see his children murdered. And they keep running. Pretty amazing, right? That's a bad one. Let's see how that turns out, but that's a really bad one. Nobody's heard that one before. Especially in the wake of Charlie's assassination, our country must have absolutely no tolerance for this radical left violence, extremism, and terror. We're done with the angry mobs, and we're not going to let our cities be unsafe. We're going to make sure our cities are safe. When you have Chicago, where they had 4,000 people murdered over a very short period of time, 4,000 people. And then we have a governor stand up and say, oh, things are going swimmingly. No, they're not. We're going to make Chicago safe, just like we're going to make, look what we did in D.C. It's so nice that we started here, because this was one of the most violent places in the United States. It'd be dangerous to be right out here. But you couldn't go to a restaurant. The restaurants were all dying. The whole place was dying. You'd have these gorgeous, look at the Washington Monument over there. You'd have these gorgeous buildings and monuments and structures. And people were afraid to leave their apartment. They were afraid to go to work. They'd get into an Uber and they'd feel safe, and then the Uber would be attacked. They thought they made it to safety, and then the Uber was attacked on the trip in. But we've done a great job, and now it's considered a totally safe city. We haven't had problems. It took us 12 days to make it great. We took out, Pam, 1,700 hard criminals, career criminals in many cases, but these are hardened criminals. Many of them came in through the Biden open borders. We brought them back to the countries. And a couple were so violent that we put them in jail. We don't want to take a chance that they could get back in, because no matter how good we do, somebody can sneak in. They were so violent and so bad. One arrested 28 times. Every time he left prison, he'd get into a violent incident. 28 times. And we put him away for a long time. But we're done with the angry mobs. We're done with it. This is such an unbelievable place right now. You take a look where you can walk down the middle of the street with your wife or your husband. Your children can walk. They can walk alone. It doesn't matter. They can walk anywhere in Washington, and they're safe now. If this were a year ago, they'd have a serious chance of being badly hurt, even killed. They'd come in from Indiana, they'd come in from Iowa, they'd come from Florida to see their nation's capital, and somebody would have to call the parents, I'm sorry, but your son or your daughter's been killed. Not anymore. You hear those sirens going off? That's good. That's a good sound. That means they either got the bad guy or they're going to stop the bad guy. You didn't hear that sound because nobody wanted to do anything. Nobody. Listen to the beauty of that sound. Seriously. And that's the real deal sirens. They're not politically correct sirens. You hear them, they're about 3 miles away. That's great. What a beautiful sound. They're stopping crime. That's what they're doing. So we're done with the voices of fools. They're fools. And death threats, and we're going to make our cities safe. And I thought it was Charlie's, one of his biggest dreams was that. He couldn't believe it. Chicago's going to be a great city again. We've already, we sent people in there 6 months ago, and this governor said, well, crime is down. Yeah, that's because we had the FBI in there for 6 months, just preparing it for the bigger surge. And they've done a great job, the cash and the FBI. They've done a great job, and they love doing it, They love being able to do it. They were restricted from doing it. They couldn't do anything. And now they're totally unrestricted. All they have to do is stop crime, and they're doing it. By the way, Memphis, as you know, you heard they went in about a week ago, one of the most dangerous places in the country. It's really in the world. It's not just the country. They have very few cities that would compare to some of these cities. You go to Afghanistan, you say, oh, that's unsafe. Well, the crime numbers are much better than the crime numbers in places that we have. So Memphis, I understand, is doing unbelievably in 1 week. It's like a different place. And this took 12 days, and then after that, we just perfected it. But after 12 days, we had good safety here. After 1 month, it's like, it's really amazing. And by the way, restaurants are booming. Restaurants are opening up. The big problem we have, you can't get into a restaurant in D.C. anymore. So they're opening up. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's called safety. It's called law enforcement and letting them do their job. And that's why I said last month that I have directed the Attorney General and the Department of Homeland Security to confront the very real threat of left-wing terrorism in our country. It's a real threat. Not when you confront it, it's not, because they're not brave people. In fact, they're cowards. When you confront them, they immediately fold. You have to see them fold. You have to see them crying. They fold. But it includes dismantling the networks that fund them and finance them, and we're finding out who those networks are. We already know quite a few of them. When you see these violent incidents, and then you see people holding this gorgeous sign with beautiful wood, beautiful cardboard, wood, everything's perfect paint job, and they're all the same. There are thousands of them. You know that they weren't made in the basement out of love. They were made by anarchists, and in some cases wealthy. I'll probably find some of my nice friends that are up there being so nice to me, especially lately. They're being very nice. But it surprises you who they may be, and you almost wonder why would they do it? But they're hurting our country, and we're really taking it back one by one. If we didn't go into Los Angeles early on in the administration, the commissioner, the chief of police, Los Angeles, said if they didn't go in, we would have lost our city. Now, they already lost 25,000 houses to fire because they wouldn't let the water come in from the Pacific Northwest, which they should have done. I said, you better do it. They didn't do it, and we had 25,000 homes where they had no water in their sprinklers, they had no water in the fire hydrants. It would have been a different kind of a thing if they did what they were supposed to do. We had to break in. We broke in and had the water come down. They actually, they said for the environment, great, they lost 25,000 houses. It's incredible. But the commissioner said without the federal government and President Trump's intervention, we would have lost the entire city. And we have the Olympics going there soon. I got the Olympics. We have the Olympics. We have the World Cup. And we have, most importantly, we have the 250th anniversary of our country. That's going to be most important. And all of these things are happening. And we're going to have safe cities. We're going to have very, very safe cities. So 1 month after Charlie's death, we still feel the terrible shock and the pain of his loss, like just about nobody I can think of. Charlie Kirk was one of a kind. He was unstoppable. And he really was. Boy, when he had an idea in his head, he would call me, sir, please, you haven't done it yet. I said, Charlie, relax. Just relax. He didn't relax. He'd call me the next day again. It got it done. But he was like indomitable and always will be. He's really irreplaceable. Nobody can replace him. But they're going to do great. But you can't replace that kind of person and that kind of talent, frankly. The word talent is an important word, but that kind of talent. So we hold his memory in our hearts forever. Every single day of this administration, we will continue to carry out the mission for which he lived, and he really did. He lived for this country. He lived for his wife and his family, but he lived for this country, too. In Charlie's honor, we will continue like we have been to fight, 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 and to win, win, win. We're going to win so much. So the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a big deal. You have the Congressional Medal of Honor, military, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is civilian. And the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a really big deal. Very few people get it. Very few people, frankly, qualify. It's a decision of the president, but it's a qualification that's a very hard one to get. And I would like to ask, if I might, the military aide to read Charles James Kirk's citation for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The president is about to invite Erica Kirk up to receive this in place of Charlie Kirk.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Charles James Kirk. Accepting on behalf of Charlie is his wife, Mrs. Erica Kirk. Charlie Kirk was one of the most influential American political figures of his generation. At just 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA and grew it into the largest conservative youth organization in the nation. For over a decade, he tirelessly traveled the country leading a movement to restore respect for our founding principles, reawaken our national identity, and inspire a renewed spirit of religious devotion. He was one of the great debaters and communicators of his time. Despite receiving repeated threats, he remained undeterred and modeled courage, logic, humor, and grace to the next generation. On September 10th, 2025, at age 31, Charlie Kirk was assassinated while addressing a group of students. The United States honors him as a martyr for truth and freedom.
The President is now handing the award to Erica Kirk. If you're listening into your car, she receives a standing ovation from the crowd assembled. President closes the box. has a word with Erica Kirk, who addresses the crowd.
Thank you, Mr. President, for honoring my husband in such a profound and meaningful way. And thank you for making this event a priority amid the peace process in the Middle East. Thank you. Very grateful. Charlie always admired your commitment to freedom, and that's something that both of you shared. So thank you. Your support of our family and the work that Charlie devoted his life to will be something I cherish forever, so thank you. To our gracious First Lady in her office for making this event possible, thank you as well. It's beautiful. To Vice President and the lovely Usha fans, your friendship has been an unbelievable encouragement. Thank you. And to all our friends and family that are here and watching from all around the world, thank you for loving us. Thank you for praying for us and for believing in what Charlie believed in. And to our Turning Point USA staff and the Charlie Kirk Show staff, we love you more than you could ever know. And to the Turning Point USA chapters that are watching all across America right now, you are the heartbeat of this future and of this movement. Everything that Charlie built, you guys are the legacy holders of that. You are living proof that his mission did not die with him. It lives through you. And Charlie always said the next generation will decide whether freedom endures. And because of you, I know that freedom will endure. It will. And today we're gathered not only to celebrate Charlie's birthday, but to honor a truth that he gave his entire life to defend, and that's freedom. The very existence of the Presidential Medal of Freedom reminds us that the national interest of the United States has always been freedom. Our founders etched it into the preamble of our Constitution, and those words are not relics on parchment. They are a living covenant. The blessings of liberty are not man's invention, they are God's endowment. Charlie lived for those blessings, not as abstract words, but as sacred promises. He used to love to journal about this topic all the time, and with such a heart postured of gratitude. And he believed that liberty was both a right and a responsibility. And he used to say, freedom is the ability to do what is right without fear. And that's how he lived. He was free from fear. He was free from compromise, free from anything that could enslave his soul. His name, Charles, literally means free man. And that's exactly who my husband was. He was a free man. And from the time I met him, sitting across from him, being interviewed on politics and philosophy and theology, anything that Charlie loved, any topic he loved, and I just saw the fire in his soul, and there was this divine restlessness within him that came from knowing God placed him on this earth to protect something very, very sacred for all of us. And he never stopped fighting for people to experience freedom. He didn't. Charlie often said that without God, freedom becomes chaos. And he believed liberty could only survive when anchored to truth. And I remember in one of his speeches, he told the audience that the opposite of liberty isn't law, He said it's captivity. And that the freest people in the world are those whose hearts belong to Christ. But what's so powerful is that Charlie had the ability to communicate so brilliantly across all generations. And he reminded us that in a world that tells us freedom is doing whatever you want to do, the real freedom is the power to live freely and to do what is right. And in one of his journal entries, he wrote that he wanted everyone to know that you can't have liberty without moral responsibility. Freedom divorced from faith eventually just destroys itself. And what's so fascinating about all of this is looking back these past 12 years of Turning Point USA and his mission, there's almost this veil of sacredness. Because what I realize is that while he was building an organization, he was also building a movement. One that called people back to God, back to truth, and a movement that was filled with courage. And ironically, for a man who impacted millions, Charlie never desired to be the center of attention. He just wasn't. My husband was not a man of extravagance. He loved simple but deeply meaningful things. Truly. He loved his late night walks. He loved buying more books than he could ever read because he felt there was no such thing as a book budget. And he loved being able to read to our kids the same bedtime story on repeat because he knew it was their favorite. But to him, that was special. And he loved to sit in the sun on a Saturday morning with his cup of decaf coffee, and his phone was off because he was honoring the Sabbath. And for him, it was that moment to catch his breath and just be in peace because he was unreachable at the moment. And he preferred quiet birthdays. But that never stopped me from telling him. I told him every single year, I said, baby, I love your birthday. I said, because it's the day that God knew the world couldn't go another day without you. And so the rhythm of our usual birthday celebration for him was mint ice cream, mint chocolate chip ice cream. He only had it twice a year, on his birthday and 4th of July. It's just, and then after that, it was back to work as usual. But last year, his one birthday wish was to see the Oregon Ducks play the Ohio State. And they won. Oregon won that night. And it was by far one of the most memorable nights of his birthday experience of his life until today. And so, honestly, President Trump, I have spent 7.5 years trying to find the perfect birthday gift for Charlie. And it's so difficult. And those of you that have spouses or loved ones, you know how difficult it is sometimes to buy a gift for someone that you love. Because he wasn't a materialistic man, so that also did not help. But now I can say with confidence, Mr. President, that you have given him the best birthday gift he could ever have.
Thank you.
It's such an honor and the recognition of a life lived for defending freedom. And that's what Charlie fought for until his last breath. And it was written across his chest in those final moments on one of his simple t-shirts that always carried a message, and this one bearing a single word, freedom. That was the banner over his life, and that shirt was a declaration. The same declaration he made in every speech, every campus visit, every time he shared the gospel at a church, every sleepless night that he would spend praying for the youth of this nation and planning for the future of our country, and just impressing upon them that when we defend liberty, we defend the soul of our nation. My husband never told anyone what to say. He never did. He never told anyone what to say. He would just encourage them to think He would encourage them to think outside of the traditional political labels. He would want them to think in a way that was anchored in wisdom and truth. But he would never tell anyone what to say. Charlie wasn't content to simply admire freedom. He wanted to multiply it. He wanted to multiply freedom. He wanted young people to taste it and to understand it and defend it. He wanted them to see that liberty isn't self-indulgence, it's self-governance under God. He wanted them to see that. And every day I'd see him getting ready for work. He'd put on his cross necklace, he'd put his ring on his finger. And the boldness in his demeanor was always fearlessness. He wasn't afraid. He was never afraid. In his daily actions, whether in office or on campus or at a church, it was always without fear. That was his creed. That is how he lived out every single day. He didn't fear being slandered. He did not. He didn't fear losing friends, I can tell you that. He didn't. He didn't care. He stood for truth and stood for freedom, and he did not, everything else was just a noise to him. And it's because his confidence in Christ was absolute. That's why. There was no limit to what he would have sacrificed to defend freedom for all. And if the moment had come, he probably would have run for president, but not out of ambition. He would only have done it if that was something that he believed that his country needed from a servant's heart standpoint. And Charlie lived only 31 short years. Now he's 32, but on this side of heaven, but he lived. He lived every single second he lived. He filled every single day with purpose, and he fought for truth when it was unpopular. And he stood for God when it was costly, but that's what we're called to do. Surprisingly enough, he did pray for his enemies, which is very hard, but he did. He did. He did. No one else, I mean, I saw him do it. No, he never did it in front of anyone else, but I can attest to that. But he also loved people when it was inconvenient. And he ran his race with endurance, and he kept the faith. And now he wears the crown of a righteous martyr. And for me and for our children, the truth really steadies our grief, because heaven gained what earth could no longer contain: a free man made fully free. And to all watching, this is not a ceremony. This is a commissioning. And my message is simple. I want you to be the embodiment of this medal. I do. I want you to free yourself from fear. I want you to stand courageously in the truth. Listen for the still, small voice of God. And remember that while freedom is inherited in this country, each of us must be intentional stewards every single day. God began a mighty work through my husband, and I intend to see it through. And the torch is in our hands now. It's in mine, it's in yours, it's in all of yours, it's in all the students with Turning Point USA. And before I close, I'll share with you that I asked our daughter what she would like to say to Daddy for his birthday. Excuse me. She said, "Happy birthday, Daddy. I want to give you a stuffed animal. I want you to eat a cupcake with ice cream, and I want you to go have a birthday surprise. I love you," is what she said. And while our son, he's precious, he can't yet speak, in classic Kirk family fashion, his actions spoke louder than his words, and his gift to you, Charlie, and myself for that matter, was deciding to become the man of the house and be fully potty trained at 16 months. But Charlie, baby, I know that you're celebrating in heaven today, but gosh, I miss you. We miss you. And we love you, and we promise we'll make you proud. And Charlie's life was proof that freedom is not a theory, it's a testimony. He showed us that liberty begins not in the halls of power, but in the man of a heart surrendered to God. And so today, as we honor Charlie with this incredible Presidential Medal of Freedom on his birthday, I stand here with tears and just a humbled heart and spirit, because his story reminds us all that to live free is the greatest gift, but to die free is the greatest victory. Happy birthday, my Charlie. Happy Freedom Day. God bless you.
I believe that concludes the ceremony in the Rose Garden. Can we go back to the live feed just for a moment to make sure that we are correct about that? Beautiful playing of Amazing Grace. Erica Kirk receiving condolences from others. But we're going to stay with the feed a bit longer, as I do not know if anyone else will speak, though I doubt it. We're honoring our colleague Charlie, and so we don't want to cut out of an ongoing event. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. If you're just joining, keep the feed on, Harley, of the president talking to people. If you're just joining us, President Trump and Erica Kirk spoke, as well as the announcer who read the citation for the Medal of Freedom. And people are in their places. They're waiting for the president to leave. Obviously, you don't leave the Rose Garden before the president does. We will wrap up our coverage of this, as I don't believe anybody else is going to approach the podium. Very moving words by Erica Kirk. I expected no less. Emphasis on Charlie Kirk's deep faith in God and the saving mission of Christ. The president was funny, pointed, discursive, classic President Trump. I did not realize that President Milei of Argentina had flown. That is not a quick flight. President Trump is correct to honor Charlie Kirk. And all of the Senate and all of the House are there. The cabinet is there. And not sure who the president is speaking to right now. I don't recognize that. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, it may be Charlie's family as they're in the front row. And I think it's Erica's father who is hugging her now, as one would expect. Moving picture. What a difficult month. And she's done this twice now. Aimed high and went higher. And that is probably Charlie's sister, I'm guessing. In between them. Photographer there on the president's shoulder with Erica's dad. Again, I think it's Erica's dad. Could be Charlie's dad. But they're admiring the medal. And no doubt reading the citation. And this is appropriate. The assembled are waiting for Erica and the president. President now going over to engage with Erica. Talk a bit more. Erica Kirk embracing perhaps Charlie's sister, perhaps her own sibling. I don't know. President completely comfortable standing there and presiding. And ambient noise now as the president moves. You can keep the feed going on if the noise. Did they cut off the noise, Dwayne? Did the feed cut off? Oh. He's greeting people. Interesting choice. Be Still My Heart. Don Jr., Secretary Besant. I hope I have that hymn correctly nailed. Do I, Dwayne?
I believe so.
President leading Erica back into the Oval Office now. Beautiful ceremony. Well done by everyone. Very, very, I just think Erica Kirk is amazing. She's done this now twice. and our hats are off to her. I'm going to come back after break with Admiral Mark Montgomery to discuss the aftermath of yesterday's extraordinary events. I had interviews pre-taped with Amit Segal and Nadav Eyal from Israel. I will post those at my YouTube channel, and we will play them tomorrow. Didn't expect the ceremony to go this long, but we pre-taped it just in case. And so we'll post them over at Hugh Hewitt and YouTube. They are, I think, among Israel's greatest journalists. I wanted to check in on them on the reception of President Trump and the fact that Hamas is toying with the Israelis as we speak. So Harley will post those over at Hugh Hewitt and YouTube. If you go to watch them, and I'll play them again tomorrow. Don't worry, we'll play them tomorrow right after Dan Senor joins me. But if you go over to YouTube, please do subscribe. I appreciate that. Of the 12 television networks in America, 11 carried this. MSNBC did not. No surprise. In the aftermath of the ground-shaking developments of the past 2 weeks in the Middle East, I wanted to talk to Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy, about the pivot. Before I do that, though, Admiral, my condolences. My friend Jerry, your friend Jerry, informed me you lost your dad, Captain Montgomery. Jerry tells me he was a cold warrior and a hot warrior, meaning he was in combat and also a cold warrior. What did he do?
So he was eventually became a Navy cryptologist, and he served in the invasion of Lebanon in 1958, 2 tours in Vietnam, and then he eventually was our defense attaché to Moscow, or naval attaché to Moscow for about 3 years.
Oh.
The Soviet Union, and then went to work at his last job in the military was at the CIA, and he stayed at the CIA for another 15 years afterward on what's called the National Intelligence Council that does our long-range assessments.
So he really was a cold warrior as well as a hot warrior. And Moscow Station, that's wild. We'll have to sit down over a beer sometime and find out a little bit about what your dad told. Did you grow up in Moscow at all, or was that a geo-batch assignment?
No, the whole family was there. I left for about a year and a half of the 3 years to go to school, but I was there about a year and a half. My sister and brother each lived there the whole 3 years. I got to know, I traded a lot of Playboys and jeans for Soviet Army uniforms for fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, Admiral. That's always difficult. What I wanted to ask you is, in the aftermath of this big deal in the Middle East and peace breaking out, and it looks like Iran, at least tactically defeated, maybe strategically set back, do we actually do the pivot now to the Pacific that we've been talking about for 10 years?
Well, that's a great question, Hugh. And this pivot is necessary. I'll tell you what's happening. The carrier strike groups, the Air Force squadrons, the Army Air Defense units, the submarines that we've been keeping in the Middle East, since October 7th again, a big plus up after October 7th. For the past 2 years, that's billions of dollars of readiness to the Air Force, Navy, and Army. And if you think back 10, 12 years ago, it actually broke the Navy and Air Force, where they could no longer do carrier strike group deployments at one point. And the Air Force readiness and their fighter squadrons dropped below 50% at one point. So what we're trying to do is prevent that and prevent the bill that comes with it. So they better, feel comfortable reducing that force structure. And of course, it's always dangerous to reduce at the beginning of a new era, right? You know what I mean? Your deterrent posture is being pulled. But those forces were really about Iran. And I think we have done a lot of damage to Iran. Israel's done a lot of damage to Iran and its networks. So I do support reducing the force structure in the Middle East, flowing it so it's ready to go in the Pacific, so that we have a strong deterrent posture towards China in the Western Pacific.
And Admiral, where does it go? Australia is a long way away from China. Does it go to the Philippines? Does it go to Korea? Or does it go to Japan, or all three of them? Do you have a pie that you divide up in your head?
So the forces we're talking about right now are forces that are stationed in Norfolk, San Diego, Pearl Harbor, and at Air Force bases in the continental U.S. So these were not forward station forces, but forward deployed forces. So as you're able to now deploy these forces in the Pacific, they come from San Diego, Hawaii, Everett, and air bases in the continental United States, and they temporarily go to facilities, I think, in Guam, Japan, and the Philippines, and a little bit down in Australia, because you're right, the distance from Australia is pretty tough. You can't, that's a lot of refueling for an aircraft, and it's, a week-long transit for surface ships. So I kind of think you'll see more U.S. forces in the Guam, Japan, Philippines area as part of this. Probably not Australia and Korea, only because I wouldn't put it in Korea, just because Korea is not really part of our Taiwan or South China Sea warfighting planning. The forces on the peninsula tend to stay on the peninsula.
And then snuck into the small print of everything about the last 3 days is the idea that Indonesia is next onto the Abraham Accords, which would be a great thing, largest Muslim majority country in the world. Do we have a defense relationship with them of the sort that we could develop it into a Japanese or a Philippine style relationship?
So we don't have a defense posture in terms of forces stationed there or a defense exercise relationship, but we do have a defense sales relationship. They buy a lot of U.S. gear. So that's a pretty good point to pivot on to build interoperability and work with them. They have historically been careful about China. Now, China has unrealistic 9-line claims against Malaysia and Indonesia as well. So they're in there a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Look, they're not just the world's largest Muslim country; they're the second largest democracy in the world, or second or third. They're very close to our population, but second or third largest democracy in the world as well. So I think they're an important country to cultivate there. They're not a war-fighting country with us for the foreseeable future. I think it's Japan, Taiwan, Australia, and the Philippines, kind of in that order.
Is there any other base that we can develop, Admiral, thinking out 25 years and trying to be strategic about this? I know that we closed the one in the Philippines. Is there any other place besides Guam that we can plus up and make into a genuinely significant space from which assets can refuel and deploy?
So I think there's two parts to this, and you hit the first one perfectly there. The larger ones that you refuel and deploy from, I think Australia is actually a really good example of that in Perth area, north of Perth on the west coast of Australia. I think that's one. I think what we have to do after that is find smaller places that the Air Force and Navy can move to and through. And those include in the Marianas, they include Yap and Tinian, and Palau, and then more in the Philippines, develop more of the what are called EDCA sites. There's 20 of them potentially in the Philippines. And that's how I'd kind of spread this out. Look, someday Taiwan, if you ask me, but that's how I'd spread this out. We need to give the Air Force the ability to move to other bases in a crisis rapidly.
Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy. Always good to check in with you while events are afoot in the world. Thank you for your time. I want to close by saying thank you to three sponsors. You get used to this, but I want you to very focus on the American Exploration and Production Council. That's axpc.org. My Steeler fans will try and put an AEPC. American Exploration and Production Council, axpc.org, axpc.org. What's it do? It's got a plan for the United States to open up its oil and natural gas resources, to get the pipelines built, to ship them to the places that those energy sources need to go, to keep us ahead in the AI and supercomputing power races with China. You need to know the plan. You need to be able to speak coherently about it. You need to get on board with your congressmen and your senators. So head over to axpc.org. The American Exploration and Production Council, axpc.org. Thank you in advance for doing that. You'll thank me when your gas and natural gas prices go down. You're able to heat your home at a decent amount, axpc.org. Also, Relief Factor, I'm triple downing today. Took an hours 1 and 2, and I'm taking an hour 3 again. because tomorrow is getaway day for me, and it's a good 12 hours of driving over 2 days. And the reason I take this is because I've already got the mobility of a couch, because I pulled my hamstring. It's got to go away, and I always count on Relief Factor when that happens. And it sort of came through already today. I almost went out and trundled. Then I said, you really can't restrain that right before you get in the car. So add a little bit of common sense to your Relief Factor. But first, start with a Relief Factor. Call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Get the starter pack. It's $19.95, 3-week supply. You'll get a bag like this, and you will take 3 packets a day for the first week, 2 packets a day for the second week. Like I've been taking 3 packets a day because I've got a blown out hamstring. And then 1 packet a day like I normally do whenever things get back to normal. Do not put up with the minor aches and pains. Not going to heal a broken bone. It is going to get rid of those. It has worked for me for more than a dozen years. Only supplement I've taken for more than 20. Trust me on this. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Or go to relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. That starter pack is at relieffactor.com. And then finally, remember, our friends in Israel still need your help. The hostages are home. The bodies are not. And there are millions of Israelis that need help. The International Federation of Christians and Jews, there's a banner at the top of my website. They are doing everything they can to help the families of the hostages. More than $1 million have been donated to them over the course of the past 2 years by the fellowship. They continue to supply and maintain resilient centers for every Israeli who's been traumatized by the last 2 years, whether an immediate and extraordinary victim, someone who was wounded, someone who was kidnapped or a family member thereof, or anyone just suffering from running to and from the bomb shelter continually for 2 years. Your contribution can be made tax deductible and securely at the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, great sponsors and great friends of Israel. We thank them for the work they do, and I thank you for the contributions you make to them.